Albert Schweitzer, a theologian and philosopher and Nobel Peace Prize winner in 1956, said, "Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success." Today, we're going to talk about the role of happiness in your business and how it can help you answer the question, why am I not doing the things I really know I need to do? This all started because somebody asked me what my morning routine was like, and I realized that it actually lined up with what the research around happiness habits, and I started thinking about how happiness is one of those things that can stand in your way of doing the things you know you need to do. Welcome to Explore Your Enthusiasm, episode 166. Today we're going to talk about one of the many things that can hold us back from doing what we need to do. Links to everything I mentioned, including the webinar signups, because yes, there are going to be webinars that are free workshops. All of that will be linked in the show notes at taraswiger.com/podcast166. So I've taught a lot already on this podcast about the things that hold us back from taking the action we want to take, and things like overwhelm. And one of the solutions to overwhelm is you get everything out of your head and you start prioritizing it and you make a plan. And my book, Map Your Business, walks you through how to do that. A lack of confidence can get in your way. So I created the Biz Confidence Challenge, which is 6 weeks of challenges that you post on Instagram about in order to build your confidence in your business and in what you want to do. We've also talked about mindset. A fixed mindset can make you think that you'll never grow and you'll never change and you'll never be able to do the things you want to do. We talked about that in episode 49, the key to success. Spoiler alert, it's mindset. But as I've been talking and teaching with you all about building a business despite anxiety and depression, I think we have hit on another aspect of this, and that is it can hold you back if you aren't mentally and emotionally able to do the thing. If you are suffering deep fatigue or you are feeling just meh, if you are not feeling good enough to do it, you won't be able to do it. So what I'm talking about here isn't physical illness. Obviously, if you're sick, you need to take care of yourself and take a break. But we're talking about like mood, attitude, emotions, state of mind, that kind of whole realm. So overwhelm, lack of confidence, fixed mindset, they can all get you to a place where you don't feel like you're able to actually do the work, or you just get down on yourself. But even after you get organized, you're working on your confidence, you truly believe you're capable of growth, you may still just be in a funk, or you may just be in a bad mood, or you may be cranky and not feel like working. And I don't know about you, but it's super hard to do like heavy lifting brain work when you're just like in a funk and you hate the world. So luckily, there's been a lot of research in the last 20 years on this topic. Basically, the answer is happiness. Now, tons of studies show that when it comes to living the life we want to live and building our businesses or our relationships, happiness actually matters. But first, I want to get really clear on what happiness is. So every time I talk about this with Jay and every time I've read books and shared the research with him, we first have to define our terms because we were raised with very different understandings of the word happiness and what the feeling actually feels like. So for our purposes here, to get us all on the same page, you can have whatever definition you want in your personal life. But for us, what I'm talking about is a state of well-being that encompasses living a good life. In other words, having a sense of meaning and deep satisfaction. That's what I'm talking about with happiness. I'm not talking about like a bubbly, giddy, oh, I'm so excited. Like that might be excitement or enthusiasm. What we're talking about here is that sense of well-being. So the guy who started the field of positive psychology, and positive psychology is just studying mental health instead of studying mental illness, which is what psychology had done up until then. His name is Martin Seligman. I have no idea how to say his last name. Martin Seligman. There'll be a link. According to him, there are 5 factors correlated with well-being. This is after a lot of research, and I've linked up the research in the transcript. So 5 factors. Pleasure, which is like good tasting food, a warm bath, like physical pleasure. Engagement, also sometimes called flow, which is like when you're totally absorbed in a challenging and enjoyable activity. The third is relationships. Social ties are extremely important when it comes to happiness. Fourth is meaning, our perceived quest or belonging to something bigger. If you want to read more about that, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is awesome. And then the 5th factor of happiness is accomplishment, having realized tangible goals. So the meaning and the accomplishment is often what we're looking for when we're building our own business, along with like relationships and pleasure and engagement. I don't know about you, but I get super engaged when I'm working on my business in a focused way and not being super distracted by social media. So when I talk about happiness here and in your business, what I mean is that feeling of well-being based on those 5 factors: relationships, accomplishment, meaningfulness, pleasure, and engagement. That's what we're talking about. Not, I'm just like so excited, because you don't always have to feel that way in order to feel a sense of well-being. So I started thinking about all this because I mentioned in a Starship chat, when it was my turn to check in on how I was doing, I said, I'm having a good day because I've done all the things required to have a good day. And a Starship captain asked me, what is that? Like, can you do a podcast or a post where you explain what are the things that you do in order to have a good day? And as I started writing out my day to share with you in this podcast episode, I was also reading a book that mentioned Sean Akers' work, which I have read, and I wrote a whole blog post about his book, The Happiness Advantage. So I've totally loved his work, and I've linked it up in the show notes and in the transcript. But I realized that his research pretty much lined up with my morning routine, what I do in the morning to have a good day. So he has 5 habits of happiness. I'm going to read them to you. So each morning, this is number 1. Each morning, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Grateful for. Not the same 3 every day. Find 3 new things to write about. This trains your brain to search your circumstances and hunt for the positive. So the second happy habit is journal for 2 minutes a day about one positive experience you've had in the past 24 hours. So you just write everything you can remember about a really positive experience. The third happiness habit is to meditate daily. Nothing fancy, just stop all activity, relax, and watch your breath. Go in and out for at least 2 minutes. We talked more about meditation in my update on anxiety episode back in the 150s. Happy habit number 4, do a random act of kindness over the course of each day. So to make this simple, Sean often recommends a specific act of kindness at the start of each day. Like you could take 2 minutes to write an email, or you could send a card to somebody, or you can pay for somebody's coffee at the coffee shop. The 5th happiness habit is to exercise for 15 minutes daily. Simple cardio, even a brisk walk, has a powerful antidepressant impact, and in many cases, it's stronger and more long-lasting than an actual antidepressant. So there are a lot of studies that show that those habits are habits that create that sense of well-being and purposefulness and meaningfulness and accomplishment and engagement, all of that, those 5 habits. So I thought that was super interesting because as I was looking at my own morning routine, I realized how much that they mirrored that. So I wanted to talk about that when you are feeling like, ugh, I feel fine with my confidence. I feel fine with I'm not overwhelmed. I'm just having a crappy day. You can look at those 5 habits and see, is there something on this list I could do that would change how I'm feeling just a little bit? That's all we're looking for, is tiny shifts, so then you can get back in that state of flow and engagement and get working again, if that's what you want to do. Or you realize, I'm having a bad day, I just need to stop work and step away and get engaged in something else, something maybe a little more fun or playful. So now my own morning routine, because you guys have asked me over the years to share it. These are the things I do most mornings, but I'm going to talk a little bit about, you don't have to be perfect. And by the way, this works for me. Yours is going to be different. You're going to want to do different things with your morning. You're going to want to do different things in your day. So I start each day with a glass of water with a few drops of an essential oil blend that wakes me up. It's the Slim Blend from doTERRA, and it's got orange and peppermint in it, and it boosts metabolism and encourages a feeling of self-love, is what they say about the orange and the peppermint that are in it. And it super, super wakes you up. Like orange and peppermint will wake you right up. The second thing is I go for a run, which I want to be clear is really a run walk, if you look at my pace, for at least 15 minutes, and I do that 2 to 3 times a week. Then when I come back from my run, or if I'm not going for a run, I sit in quiet, which is basically what we call it here, quiet time, like I'm a toddler. It's kind of like meditation or prayer or quiet time. Just like we talked about in previous episodes, it's just breathing deep, focusing on your breath, letting go of your thoughts as they come. They're going to keep coming, and then you're just going to practice letting them go, and it trains your brain to focus when you need to focus. Before I sit down for the quiet time, I grab frankincense, which is grounding, and I put it on my forehead and my chest, And I might also turn on a diffuser. I often diffuse sandalwood and frank and maybe a citrus like wild orange. Like right now, I have going frankincense and sandalwood and kumquat because it's a citrus and it smells wonderful and grounding and calming. Then I make my coffee because come on. Then I journal. What I found is if I make my coffee before the quiet time, like I too much want to drink my coffee before it goes cold. So then I make my coffee and then I journal. So I usually write a gratitude list of at least 3 things every time I pick up my journal. So that might be a couple times a day, but definitely first thing in the morning, at least 3 things that I'm grateful for, both big and small. Like yesterday, I literally wrote, I'm grateful for these comfy shorts because they're really comfy shorts. And then I spend some time like looking at the thing and picturing the thing and feeling all of my feelings about the thing, all my feelings of gratefulness. So sometimes the thing is J. Now, Sean says to pick different things every day, but I find that being grateful for my husband is really good, both for my own well-being and for my marriage. I'm also often really grateful for my dogs because they're so sweet. So they show up on my list on a regular basis. Also, sometimes just coffee is on my list because coffee is the best thing ever. And then after that, I often journal. I will either ask my intuition something, or I'll free write, or I'll make a list of what I want to work on. Like sometimes journaling for me is like, record the podcast episode, make sure you don't forget the book that you're going to read from in the podcast episode, call back this person, do this. That's fine. If that's what needs to come out in order for me to like stop thinking about it, then I write it out. When I say journal, what I mean is I like get whatever thoughts are going around in my head out on paper and then I just leave them alone. I'm not trying to like make them pretty or make them good. I'm just trying to get them out of my head. So I might write down thoughts I had when I was running. A lot of times I have like a great idea and I immediately come down, I get my journal and I write it down. Later, I don't know if it's a good idea, but just getting it out of my head helps. Then I often read for anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, somewhere in here, like after journaling, but with my coffee, depending on what the day has. So my husband doesn't go to work until noon most days. And so I have time in the morning where I can't really focus in work because he's here doing his thing. Sometimes I go to the coffee shop at this point and I have my coffee and I read at my coffee shop and then I can start work earlier in the day. If he's around, I often like sit on the porch and read with my coffee. And by the way, people ask how I read so much. Like in the past several years, I've read 100 books a year. It's because I'm spending the time in the morning before I do anything else reading. So if I've run that morning, I take a shower. Like I have my quiet time, I journal after my run, kind of let the sweat stop pouring off of me. And then I go take a shower, usually after the quiet time and the journaling. When I do that, I usually put a few drops of the essential oil blend Breathe in the shower, on the bottom of the shower, because then when the hot water hits it, it creates this awesome steam that opens up my sinuses. It clears out any allergens. I'm often pretty sniffy after I go outside, basically from March through November here where I live in Tennessee. So the Breathe really helps and the steam opens up my sinuses and it clears out any allergens. And then I get out of the shower, I get ready, and then I sit down to work. So when I sit down to work, I use either the Motivate blend or the Passion blend, both of which just totally cheer me up and make me feel good. And they're kind of like my perfume for the day. But when I'm having a stressful time, I sniff my wrists. And they make me feel great again. So the important thing with all of these habits that I'm talking through is just you start with one and then you become consistent and then you build on to it with another. So if you start all at once, when I tried to run and meditate and journal and read, it's just overwhelming and I could never do, and I would feel bad. I was like, it was all or nothing. But when you just take one and you just try to get one in, then you can get consistent with one, then you can add a second one. So I've been building this up for the past 4 years and it's changed and it's shifted and I never get it perfect. Like there's never a morning where there are some mornings when I do everything I've listed here, but not everything that I thought I should do, like running errands and going to the bank or something like that. Like I often, if I get all of these things done, I've totally left off something else I intended to do that day. But for me, if I've done like 3 out of 5, I feel really great. I consider it a success. I'm like, okay, let's start the day. And an example is this morning. This morning we had a meeting with a bank about the comic book shop. So all I had time to do was I woke up too early. I couldn't fall back asleep. So I got a shower. I drank a glass of water. I made my coffee. I journaled and read on the porch only for like 20 minutes with my cup of coffee. And then it was time to leave to go to the bank. So that's my list of things that if I do most of them, I've done what I can do to prepare and have a productive day. And I wanted to talk about this because I think it's easy to think you should just like be a robot and start your day and immediately click on to work and have a super productive day. But I found that the more time I take to prepare and get in that state of flow and engagement with what I'm doing and being interested in my world and being grateful and being like feeling good physically, the easier it is to get into a productive state. So the really awesome thing is, in my experience, this is cumulative. If I've been running 2 to 3 times a week for several weeks and then I take a couple days off, I don't sink as far down as when I didn't do it as often or as consistently. And the same is true of meditation, quiet time, journaling. I don't do those things every single day, but if I'm getting them in a lot of days, and it's that much easier to get back to it, and it's that much easier not to sink into a lower mood. So, and if I've even gotten to do 1 or 2 of them, I usually have a totally normal day. It's when multiple days in a row go by that I've done none of those things that for me, my mood just sinks deeper and deeper and deeper. And the more I can be consistent with those morning things, the easier it is to not slip into that deep darkness. Now, you've heard me mention throughout those morning routines several different essential oils because I actually use them. And I know you guys like to know the details of what I'm reading, what I'm using, what I'm eating. So I shared the specifics. But the other reason is that they've actually helped me create this other habit that is embedded underneath all those other habits I mentioned. And this habit is really helpful in keeping up my mood and keeping me from slipping either into anxiety or depression, and it keeps me closer to those feelings of flow and closer to feeling like good and having like meaning in my life. Now, I wanted to talk to you about this because back in episode 161, when we talked about your money stories, I got a million emails asking, but how do you change those stories? How do you get rid of the money stories or work through the money stories? And I don't have an exact answer for you yet. I don't have a full answer for you yet. I'm never going to have an exact answer, but I have a sense that this habit I'm about to talk about that underlies all these other habits, this is part of the process. This is part of the process of letting go of your money stories. This is part of the process of, for me, moving into more emotional and mental health. And this is part of the process that essential oils have helped me with. And I kind of just came to this realization in the past couple of days as I've been writing out this episode. So the habit is this: paying attention to my feelings when I feel them, but not buying into them. And then taking some tiny action to shift things. So let me explain that step by step. So first, paying attention to my feelings. I used to be really good at shoving everything down. If you've ever watched the How I Met Your Mother episode where he says, I'm an Ohioan, we're really good at shoving things down. Well, I'm an Ohioan, and that really spoke to me. So I would literally hold my bladder and work for 8 hours and not use the bathroom. This is even back when I had a day job that I didn't particularly like. I would just forget to eat lunch or breakfast. Those are physical sensations that I was really good at ignoring, but I was even doing this double for emotional sensations. So I wouldn't know what my feelings were or how I was feeling about something. it would just like build up into unpleasantness. So I would just ignore the sadness, the fear, the overwhelm, the joy, the enthusiasm, and they would pass like clouds through my day, and I would be entirely unaware of them. So I was worried that at any moment, let me back up. But since recognizing that I was having panic attacks and, oh, this is anxiety, and oh, that was depression. Once I started recognizing that and I got really honest about all of it, I started to pay attention to how I was feeling, but I started paying way too much attention. I worried that any moment of worry was going to send me over the edge. I was worried that any sadness was going to become crippling. I worried that it was all a sign that I was becoming totally certifiably crazy because I went from spending no attention on my feelings to spending all the attention on my feelings like I didn't think about anything else for a couple weeks. And it made me nuts. So to suddenly be feeling my feelings was absolutely terrifying. And I really worried that I completely broke myself and that I broke my ability to like cope with life. Because until then, I'd considered myself an incredibly resilient person. And it wasn't resilient, it was shoving things down. Now I was dealing with the things, but they were just like waves knocking me down. Like when you can't get up when you're in the ocean because a wave keeps knocking you down, it gets a little scary. That's where I was. So that's why I needed the second part. The second part was not buying into the feelings. Now, this is really different than ignoring them, but my brain wants to say, no, you're just ignoring them. But this is paying attention and then understanding this. Feelings pass. Feelings are not reality, and feelings are not static. They're not things. They're not like things you can pick up and hold on to. They're going to move. And if you let them move through you, they'll also move away from you. So they're not necessarily indicative that anything is wrong. Emotions are like clouds passing over the sky. They are not the sky. The sky is vast and deep and blue and there. It's unchanging. The clouds are the only thing that's changing, and the clouds move and change and blow away. And the same is true of me. I am the sky, and emotions can pass over me, but they do not change my fundamental me-ness. So I can choose to explore them further, or I can choose to take action, or I can choose to change my mood. I can decide like, this feeling isn't serving me. It's just getting me all worked up and it's not that helpful. It's not teaching me anything useful. So now this is all with the purpose of not ignoring the underlying issues, but rather noticing that the feelings are changeable and that I have some power over the situation. So I can change the underlying problem if there's an underlying problem. But just because I'm feeling a feeling doesn't mean there's necessarily an underlying problem that I need to stop everything and like examine it. So I'm going to stress that I'm not saying you're ignoring them. I'm not saying you shove them down, but rather that you don't buy into the idea that your feelings are facts or that your feelings are you. If you think that the feelings are truly pointing at something, then look into that. Take action to fix it. But if you're not sure, you can do something small to just shift the feelings so that you can get on with your day and get on with your life. I wish I knew this. When I started feeling my feelings, I wish I knew that it was okay, like, to just like let them move aside and that they would move aside and that they weren't like a sign. So the last step in this process is doing something to shift the feelings. So there's a million actions you can take. Journaling, talking to someone, taking a shower, going outside, petting a dog. One of the fastest things I found is smelling and inspiring or cheering or comforting essential oil. So there's a lot of studies that show this actually works on a neurological level. Your olfactory system leads to your amygdala, which is the area in your brain that processes emotions and memories, which is why the sense of smell is so powerful in generating emotions. So the aromatic compounds in essential oils, and by the way, essential oils are just extracts from plants, pure and simple, just extracts from plants. They can attach to receptor sites in your olfactory system. There's just recently a New York Times article about this. It's totally fascinating. They can attach to receptor sites and trigger emotions or calm other emotions, but basically work with your emotional system to regulate the emotions or shift in a small way. Now, they're not getting rid of the underlying issue. That's still the work that needs to be done, but they can help you shift so that you can keep operating in the world. So I actually have a really cool chart of with emotions and the kinds of oils so that you can identify your feeling, then find an oil to support it. It's one of my favorite things. I'm actually going to talk more about this on upcoming webinars because I love to talk about this. So tomorrow, July 21st, I'm going to do my essential oil morning routine where I'll talk more about all those oils I mentioned. And then next Thursday, a week from that, I'm going to do managing your mood and emotions with essential oils. We'll talk about that mood chart and the oils that you can use to support those moods and help you shift out of them sooner if you want to, or work through them when you're ready to process them. So you can sign up for both of those webinars at taraswiger.com/EO. Now, no matter what tool you use, the key is to create a new feedback loop. If you've been believing everything your feelings tell you, then you've created the feedback loop of feel something, believe it, act on it. When I started to first notice the feelings, then it was not buy into them, then do something to feel good. It created a new feedback loop. And that might take a while, but it does improve your mood over time, and it helps you become more powerful in managing your own moods and in not like running away with you. Like you don't think the clouds are just like you. They don't overwhelm you in the same way. Now, in the beginning of this episode, I read the Albert Schweitzer quote because we're here to talk about handmade businesses a lot. And this bit about happiness is because this is part of your business success. So he says, the key to happiness is not success. The key to success is happiness. Because that's what this is all about in the terms of what we're talking about. I want you to have good days and feel great and be super productive. And I want you to do that in order to reach your big goals that you've set and in order to create the kind of business and life that you want to create. And also because I meet so many people who think they'll feel great or they'll stop feeling anxious after they have a certain amount of money or after they've hit a certain goal or after your business pays your bills, but you're not going to get there. If you are so stressed about money and bills and goals that you are miserable, or if you're stressed about anything else and you're miserable, it's really hard to have confidence. It's really hard to get organized. It's really hard to do the work that it takes to build a business. And so many women I've worked with, that's where they're at. Like stuff is so hard and they're so stressed that they can't do the actions that would help pull them out of it because things are so hard and it's so stressful. So there are absolutely underlying things you can take off some of the stress. Like I tell people sometimes, like, get a part-time job. That will help relieve money stress, or make different decisions, sell your car, move into a smaller house, or stay in your job a little longer, put more money into savings, make decisions that will fix the underlying problems, but also deal with the feelings. Don't just keep shoving them aside, or don't keep letting them run the whole show and buying into every one. So if you can shift your mood, you can acknowledge your feelings and recognize them and not let them carry you away, and then take some action that will help you shift to a more productive place, you're going to have this space and the energy to think clearly, to take action, and that's what builds your businesses. So it goes like, how you believe about life, like your mindset about fixed or growth. And then on top of that is layered your mood and how you actually feel, and your confidence is part of that. And then when those work together, you are able to take actions. Knowing the action is just a tiny step. Taking the action is in the next step. And when you take action, you get results. And when you get results, you get the thing you've been working towards. So that's why we talk about mood and happiness and mindset, because that has to happen before you can ever take the actions you know you need to take. So now I want to hear from you. What is your morning routine, and what are the happiness habits we talked about today that you want to begin to include in your day? You can share the answer with me on Instagram using the hashtag #ExploreYourEnthusiasm. I love to see what you guys are working on. So share it, use the hashtag #ExploreYourEnthusiasm. And if you'd like to join me in learning more about creating a great day with essential oils or managing your mood with essential oils, you can sign up at tarswiger.com/EO. I wish you guys a really happy day, a cloudless sky day, or the ability to deal with the clouds when they come. Have a great, enthusiastic day.